Hey there. When you think about Singapore, you probably picture gleaming skyscrapers, pristine streets, and ridiculously expensive everything. GDP per capita is over 80,000 US dollars, one of the highest standards of living in the world. Sounds impressive, right? Just 60 years ago, Singapore was a poor, underdeveloped port city with no natural resources, massive unemployment, and people living in slums. Today, Singapore is the richest country in Asia. How does a tiny island with zero oil, no gold mines, and barely any land become one of the wealthiest places on Earth in just one generation? Let's unpack how Singapore went from third world to richest in Asia. Section 1. The Desperate Beginning. In 1965, Singapore got kicked out of Malaysia, and suddenly this tiny island was completely on its own. No natural resources, no military, barely any fresh water, race riots happening in the streets, unemployment hitting 14%, and the founding Prime Minister Kuan literally cried on national television because he thought the country was doomed. Most experts predicted Singapore would fail within years. Think about it. Singapore is smaller than New York City, with no oil like Saudi Arabia, no diamonds like Botswana, no vast farmland like Argentina. What could they possibly export? Instead of panicking, Singapore's leaders made a radical decision. If they couldn't compete on natural resources, they'd compete on something else entirely. Section 2. The Location Masterstroke. Singapore had one massive advantage: its location, sitting right at the world's busiest crossroads between east and west. They started by building the most advanced port in the world. While other countries were still using outdated manual systems, Singapore invested everything into automation and technology. Ships that took days to unload elsewhere could be handled in hours in Singapore. Then they did something genius. They made English the primary business language. This wasn't obvious back then. Most Asian countries stuck with their local languages, but Singapore realized that to attract Western businesses, they needed to eliminate language barriers completely. Section 3. The Education Revolution. Singapore's leaders knew they needed smart people to run a modern economy, so they made education their national obsession. Singapore started pouring massive amounts of money into schools, universities, and technical training. They sent their brightest students abroad to study at Harvard, MIT, Oxford, anywhere they could learn cutting-edge skills. But here's the key part. They required these students to come back and work for the government for several years. This created a brain gain instead of brain drain. By the 1980s, Singapore had one of the most educated workforces in Asia, a generation of young Singaporeans who could compete with anyone. This wasn't just about making people smarter. It was about creating the human capital needed for high-tech industries. Section 4. The Manufacturing Miracle. In the 1970s, while other developing countries were still focused on basic agriculture, Singapore made a bold bet on high-tech, high-value manufacturing. They actively courted multinational corporations, offering them incredible deals, tax breaks, streamlined regulations, world-class infrastructure, and a corruption-free environment. Companies like Texas Instruments, Motorola, and later Apple started setting up factories in Singapore. Within a decade, Singapore transformed from a basic port city into a major electronics manufacturer. They didn't just assemble products. They gradually moved up the value chain. First assembly, then component manufacturing, then design, then research and development. By the 1990s, Singapore wasn't just making electronics, they were inventing them. Section 5. The Financial Hub Strategy. As Singapore got richer from manufacturing, their leaders realized they needed to diversify again. Manufacturing was great, but financial services could be even more profitable. In the 1980s and 90s, Singapore launched an aggressive campaign to become Asia's financial capital. They created business-friendly regulations, built world-class banking infrastructure, and positioned themselves as the safest place in Asia to park money. While other countries had currency crises, political instability, and corruption scandals, Singapore remained rock-solid stable. International banks started moving their Asian operations to Singapore. Wealthy individuals began storing their money there. Singapore became the Switzerland of Asia, neutral, stable, and incredibly good at managing money. Today, Singapore manages over $4 trillion in assets. That's more than most entire countries' GDP. Section 6. The results. So what did all this strategic thinking accomplish? The numbers are absolutely mind-blowing. In 1965, Singapore's GDP per capita was around 500 US dollars. Today, over 80,000 US dollars. That's a 160 times increase in just 60 years. If you invested $1,000 in Singapore's economy in 1965, it would be worth over $160,000 today. Singapore now has one of the highest concentrations of millionaires in the world. Their sovereign wealth fund is worth over $800 billion. Their currency is one of the strongest in Asia. And unemployment? It's consistently under 3%. They did all this while maintaining political stability, low crime rates, and high quality of life. Singapore isn't just rich, it's functional. Conclusion. Singapore's transformation from third world port to first world powerhouse in just one generation is one of the most remarkable economic success stories in human history. They proved that with smart leadership, strategic thinking, and flawless execution, even a tiny island with no natural resources can become incredibly wealthy. They also created some problems along the way: extreme inequality, work-life balance issues, and dependence on foreign talent. But overall, Singapore's rise from poverty to prosperity in 60 years is absolutely incredible. And if you want me to make other videos explaining economic miracles like this, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.